The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. As always, thank you for sharing time with us. I'm really excited about tonight's guest. Holly, did you bring the script?
No.
Did you read the script?
No.
Oh my God, what are we going to talk about?
I have no idea. Here we are.
Wow. All right, so we have no script for you tonight.
No.
All right, where do you want to start?
I don't know.
What qualifies you to be on a show, Exit Team Nashua, where the mission statement is to bring recovery and hope into the living room?
Wow, what qualifies me? Well, I'm a person in recovery. I got sober the 25th of April, 2017, so I have a little over 4 years of continuous sobriety. And I was like a person who used drugs and alcohol to numb everything, through the entirety of my life. I picked up substances at a pretty early age, and I, struggled with a lot of mental health issues and a lot of other situations that just brought me to this place where I didn't know how to navigate life on life's terms. It was overwhelming.
So I consider myself pretty fortunate to have a relationship with you. So I know about you. When you say that you picked up alcohol and drugs to comfort yourself, for people watching that don't understand what that means, what does that mean? So,
at this internal condition, right? As a baseline, I was restless, irritable, discontent. I was just so uncomfortable in my own skin. I was the kind of kid that would walk down the hallway and I would look at other kids and I would be like, oh, if I could be like them, or just constantly looking to get out of myself. Nothing that I ever had was good enough. I was never comfortable with where I came from. My parents worked really hard to give us the best life that they could. But I lived in a community where a lot of people were significantly more affluent than we were. And I was holding up the spectacle of material, right? If I had this thing, then I would be okay. And my parents were really good about trying to provide those things for me and fostering whatever that was. And nothing was enough. And so I just was riddled with anxiety. I was full of fear.
I have a question. How early in your life did that thought process of I'm not enough, I'm less than, and riddled with anxiety and fear, how early back do you remember that?
I can remember standing on the playground in kindergarten and watching the kids on the monkey bars, on this particular play set, and being afraid to get on them because people would think that I was going to do a bad job. Wow. So from as early back as I can remember, I had those feelings, just complete separation from my peers. I always stood with the teachers, if it was recess, I would either stand up against the fence or I would stand next to the teachers.
What would you do with the teachers?
I would try to earn their affection, right? I would explain how smart I was, and I would tell them these long stories about, oh, look at me, this is, I'm special. Just really trying to build up people's perception of me, really manipulating and trying to paint a picture.
Okay, and how old were you the first time you picked up?
So it's kind of funny. I use this reference of my first substance being nicotine.
Yeah.
And I say that because it was a sleepover, and I want to say that it was maybe between 5th and 6th grade. It might have been, it was probably 5th and 6th grade. And I found cigarettes outside at this pool party that we had with other, some other girls. And I started chain smoking these cigarettes until the point where I was sick, and going through that whole experience of like being sick from nicotine and then like waking up the next
Still
day
smoking.
and being like, I'm a smoker now, right? Like just
Yeah.
boom.
That's so
Here
funny.
it is.
I literally forgot what it was like to be a kid smoking cigarettes. You just brought me
Yeah.
back there and how lightheaded and gross feeling you are, but you still keep smoking them.
Yeah, it was an effect produced, right?
Yeah.
For a minute, I didn't have to think about what I was feeling or experiencing. And then there was that other like side of it of like my peers being like, oh wow, like Holly's smoking, you know? And that was something I wanted. I wanted that.
So 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
You don't, no matter where you are, you just don't feel comfortable in your own skin around 5th. I don't even know anymore. How old is someone around 5th grade?
I was probably like 11, maybe 12.
I was going to say 12 was going to be my
Yeah.
guess. Okay.
Maybe
So
12.
you find cigarettes and they make you sick, but the insanity of it is that you keep smoking them.
Yeah.
You A, like the way it makes you feel, B, you like the way that others view you, their perception of you when you're smoking.
Absolutely.
Okay, then what happens?
And then like from there I progressed to smoking pot. You know, I picked that up. I always, you know, I came from a family of law enforcement. I was like, no drugs, don't do this, you know. And for whatever reason, it was presented to me and I was like, this is going to make me feel better. You know, I was upset about a boy at school and like there it was, you know, like, oh, perfect reason.
High school love.
Yeah, it was still middle school. It
Oh,
was
middle
still
school love,
middle
even
school.
better.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And so a girl that I looked up to was like, hey, like, are you interested in smoking? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, you know, and then that progressed. And I drank in high school, but I didn't drink a lot in high school because I didn't like the way that it tasted. And so it wasn't until like my later 20s that I really started to drink alcoholically.
So what happened between high school and alcoholically drinking? Like what happened in that time frame?
So, you know, trying to fill the void, right? Like looking at all these external situations. If I got in the right relationship, then I would be okay. If I lived in the right place, if I dropped out of high school and got away from my family, like whatever the role was that I could fill. And I was constantly like just looking for ways to get out of myself. I worked a lot. I was known to have like 2 to 3 jobs at any given time. I couldn't
So you're constantly
sit.
just going.
Yeah.
So what happens when you actually like stop and sit still?
So when I would sit still, I was just completely uncomfortable. I would be pacing back and forth. I suffered from severe insomnia. I was just, you know, I would cut myself. I controlled my food. I had like just really unhealthy behaviors that I would engage in, looking for external relief, whether it was being on the phone with, you know, people. My parents would catch me on the phone in the middle of the night. Like I couldn't just sit and be quiet. And it was really difficult for me. I had mental health diagnoses. I was on medication. And that was like a big part of my childhood is coping with those medications. I started taking benzodiazepines before I was 18 years old. And prescribed.
Okay.
Yep. And you know, that was where I sought that relief, right? Looking for like an external solution to an internal condition.
So your alcoholic tendencies are getting worse and so you're not like alcoholically drinking yet. What happens in your 20s where you are like, all right, I have arrived with alcohol, and that you start utilizing alcohol to make yourself feel okay?
So around maybe the time that I moved out of my parents' house, you know, I made some connections where I had alcohol more readily available to me through someone that I was seeing. And that's when it really started to take off. And I was able to start exploring with drinks that I liked the taste of. And once that happened and I got into that effect produced.
So like mixed drinks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, you know, I was mixing cosmopolitans, you know, and drinking out of fancy glasses. And somehow that,
Ooh, I'm classy.
that made it, yeah, right? Like I was like, oh, this is great. Like I've arrived.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that looked like me blacking out, throwing up, being miserable, going on long binges, but then getting up and doing what I had to do. I got pregnant. I had a baby.
How old were you?
I was 19 when I got pregnant with her.
Okay.
I was 20 when she was born.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I thought like, okay, like now what's the next thing? How do I fill this void? I need to get married, right? Like I need to have life look a certain way. my family wanted me to get married. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have another kid. I'm going to have this great life. And, that unraveled very quickly. I was not comfortable in my own skin. I was very codependent. And I was really not happy in the situation. And that looked like, by the time I had given birth to my third child at 24 years old, I was drinking shots of Belvedere out of the freezer at 7 o'clock in the morning. And it's expensive vodka, so it must be okay. And I had a beautiful life. I had a brand new minivan in the driveway. We lived in a nice home in Bedford. We had an indoor swimming pool. Like, we had all of the things, but like internally, I still wasn't okay. Like, all the things that I thought I needed to be okay were
It's
there.
so funny to me to think of you as trying to be a classy alcoholic.
Yes.
Because I know where your story has brought you. When you're
Yes.
saying that, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yep. For a while, I kept up appearances.
Okay.
And then as that relationship dissolved, I decided that I needed to make money and compete with what my ex had been making. And so like that led me to going down to Massachusetts and working in bars and nightclubs. And that turned into me getting into harder drugs. My prescriptions like Adderall turned into cocaine, and I started getting involved in crime. I realized, well, if I'm going to do these, like, I should sell them and then I'm going to make more money. I did this in high school with pot. So like, it just started to like escalate.
So it started from like a young girl in a good family, made it through high school, gets involved in a relationship, has 3 kids, and looks great to the world. And somehow very quickly you end up in this life of crime in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
Wow. So that happened.
Cool.
And-
We should make a movie.
They should know. So what that looked like for me is really just trying to numb everything, justifying my actions, blaming my family, blaming my parents, blaming everybody around me. If other people would just do as I wanted them to do, like, everything would be fine. And it was this constant like fight to arrange life to suit myself. And I just was never okay. I was in and out of psych hospitals. I've been institutionalized 11 times for mental health. Of those 11 times, those were all attempted suicides. And
It's so crazy.
yeah,
It's so crazy to think that you potentially could not have been the woman that you are today. Because you're someone that I look up to for many reasons, and you're someone that a lot of people that I love very, very closely look up to as well. So it's crazy to think that, like, because like I tried to take my own life too in 2016, right before I got sober. I tried to, it's crazy to think that like we survived that. You tried to take your life 11 times.
11.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And I see that as like something bigger.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say.
Working in my life. The last time I tried to take my life was November 11th of 2016. And I didn't even realize it was 11/11. And I'm a big numerology person today.
Yeah.
So like I look back at that and I'm like, that's kind of funny. And I took a copious amount of benzodiazepine medication. They're fast acting. They're non-reversible. I end up in the hospital. And, I wake up and I'm okay. And the nurse was like, oh, like, you have a guardian angel on your shoulder. You're so lucky. And I remember like yelling profanities at this nurse. I was like, if I was lucky, I wouldn't be here. I hate my life. Nobody loves me. I have nothing. I just want to die. I don't want to be here.
Were you into like holistics and open to the spirit realm then? Like because when she said guardian angel, I was like, yeah, duh. Holly's got a lot of angels. But then I was like, wait, she probably wasn't open to that back then.
I wasn't.
Okay.
I would have identified as peacefully agnostic.
Okay.
And ironically, as much as I said it was peacefully, I was not. I would fight you on it. I would like look for an argument. Someone would be like, I'll pray for you. And I'll be like, oh, great. Go talk to your magical man in the sky. Like, let me know how that works out. I'm a realist. And that's how I carried myself. I was so closed off to the realm of the spirit, and everything that I perceived and I saw, like, especially today, like I practice mediumship, and that's a big part of my life. And, when you look at those mental health diagnoses, like on a piece of paper, I'm schizophrenic.
Yeah.
On a piece of paper, those diagnoses were something that needed to be medicated and broken down. And like, they were not authentic to like who I was. And every time I saw a provider and every time I got honest, I was told something was wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you start to inherently believe that you're broken and that there's no hope for you, like it just unravels out from under you. And like I did everything I could to blot it out.
We have a mutual friend that I wouldn't say that she practices mediumship, but like is well aware of spirits. And so we'll be at work sometimes, or we used to be at work sometimes, and clients of ours would be like, "Oh, there's like a black orb around here today," and like, you know, professionals in the industry would be like, "Oh, we need to go get them like seen," like, and we're like, "Oh no, there's just a ghost in here today. It's okay.
It's fine. Yeah. Carry on.
Would be like, "Oh, they're gifted.
Yeah.
They're gifted. Yeah, we got to get close to those ones." Yep.
Yeah. And like that's what it took.
Yeah.
Right? Like it took that last attempt. By the end of my run, I was homeless. I had lost custody of my kids. My family had written me off. Nobody was willing to tolerate me. I was belligerent. I was aggressive. I was just looking for somebody to blame. And I had no one to blame but me. And
So what happened?
So it's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So I went to a party in probably February of 2018 or 2018. God, 2017.
Wrong.
Yeah, 2017. So it was like the very end of my using. I had been homeless now for a few months. I was like in and out of the shelter, in and out of like sleeping on people's couches, like whoever would tolerate me for short periods. And I had like what I can only call like a vital spiritual experience. And I remember like, you know, we were partying, we were doing drugs, and someone asked me a question. They're like, "Holly, like, what do you do?" And it was like such a simple question, like, what do you do? Right. And that's usually where I would lie. "Oh, I'm a bartender, or I'm this, or I'm an entrepreneur," right? Like I would make something up. And in that moment, like all of a sudden, like every desire to lie had left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do I do? I don't do anything. I'm like, I've lost my kids. My husband's both divorced me. Nobody loves me. My kids hate me. I can't even kill myself right. And I remember just like crumpling into like this just mess, right? And sitting on the floor and everything was fine, and then it wasn't. And like I had everything available to me in that moment. Like I was with a circle of people who were traveling. There was tons of drugs. There was tons of booze. Like being a woman, like an active addiction, like it's really easy to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just have to, pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Like we pay for it, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's where I had been. And like in that moment, I was like, I don't do anything. Like I'm done. And I'll never forget it because this kid who I'd never met in my life, like scooped me up by my face, and he like looked me in the eyes and he's like, "Holly, there's so much in this world that is bigger than you. All you have to do is get spiritual." And as he said that to me, I don't care if it was the drugs, I don't care what it was, but giant angel wings came out of his back. And I panicked. I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta get out of here. I'm going crazy. Like something is wrong." And it's February. I'm not dressed for the weather. I got locked in like the hallways of the mill building. Like I couldn't find my way out. And I finally like made it outside, and this guy was outside.
The same guy?
The same guy.
Okay.
And I was like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "I've been looking everywhere for you. Like I thought you went outside. Like it's freezing. You don't even have a jacket." And like all my stuff was in like a hotel room, like across town. And I was like, "I just have to go home." And he's like, "You just told me you don't have a home." And I'm like, "Oh crap, like take me to my ex-husband's house." And he's like, "Your ex-husband's house? Are you sure he's gonna let you go there?" And I was like, "No, but just take me there, it's close." And he drove me there, and I remember getting in the car, and it was like this beat up Honda Civic with like different colored doors and a smashed up windshield. And I remember like for the first time and I don't even know how long, I had a feeling of self-preservation. I remember buckling my seatbelt and being afraid that I wasn't going to get to where I was going. And he brought me there, and I started gathering things outside, like sticks and twigs and like this piece of wood, which I still have. I still have this piece of wood. And I keep it on my altar today. And I gathered it all up and rolled it up in the front of my shirt. And I just start hammering on the buzzer at my ex's house. And I don't know, it's got to be like 4 in the morning. And he opens the door and he had some choice words for me. And I was like, please, please, just let me in. And like the temperature, and I think the situation, he's like, all right, like, but like whatever you do, like don't wake Brock. And that's my son. And I was like, I won't, I promise, I'll go to sleep. And he took one look at me and he's like, you're not going to sleep, but just do me a favor and like, promise me you don't wake him. And I took those things and I like went into his dining room and I set them up on the floor on top of that little piece of wood. And I sat down cross-legged. I put my arms out like this. I looked at the ceiling and I just went, what? And I remember like this wave of like peace like coming over me. And it was the first time that like I really ever sought to seek something spiritual for like what was going on in my life. And he let me stay there. I told him, I was like, hey, like I had this epiphany, like I can't get high anymore. I can't drink anymore.
He's
like,
probably like, yeah, sure, Holly.
Sure, Holly, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he'd been to treatment before, you know, he'd been through the experience that like I hadn't been through. And, you know, I wasn't willing to admit I had a problem, but it was the first time that I was like, I think that like I have a problem. And I was controlling my drinking, you know, like it looked like me having a glass of wine with dinner and like trying to like do things in his house, but then getting resentful and mad. And eventually that lasted for about 2 months of me just drinking. And the 24th of April, I told him I was going to the grocery store. I went to the bar instead. I got in a bar fight, which was like a regular occurrence for me. I spent a ton of money on his debit card because I had no money. And I drove home drunk to his house, got in an argument with him, and like made phone calls to get drugs. And I woke up the next day and I like had gotten a call from a friend who was like in trouble. And I was like, oh, you should go to one of those meetings, like talking about like a 12-step recovery meeting. And like, I ended up getting involved in a fellowship the next day. And like, I never picked up another drink or a drug.
It's crazy.
It just changed, like whatever happened that night in February, like changed how I looked at things. I wasn't willing to put myself out there for like attention for men to get what I wanted. I started to get honest about things. Like I just started telling the truth. It was like this huge shift in perspective that like didn't exist in me before. And like, as a result, like getting involved in a 12-step fellowship, like at a time where I had like this absolute willingness to get well, like my life got better. And I remember people telling me like, hey, you gotta go to treatment, you gotta get help, you gotta do all these things. And I had no resources. And like, I literally got sober in the 12-step program, sleeping on a pull-out couch.
That's pretty crazy. I
Yeah.
think that's really awesome that someone let you sleep on their couch.
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah,
anyone's like early
I didn't
recovery
deserve it.
and asks to sleep over at my house, I'm like, I should, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So your life has drastically changed because my perception of you is you are a much different person.
I feel like a much different person.
Yeah.
It's like that part of me has died. Like it's just a completely new life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had an opportunity to right wrongs with members of my family, and you know, righting a wrong with my mom, and like sitting down and taking accountability for like where I had caused harm. And she told me that a psychic had told her daughter was going to die.
Wow.
And she hadn't spoken to me in a number of years, like even in my time in sobriety. And she looked at me and she's like, you know, I think my daughter did die because whoever you are, like, I don't know you, but I want to get to know you, but you are not the person that you were, you know? And I think that that's a testament. Like, my life has gotten exponentially better. My kids live with me today.
That's huge.
I'm in like a committed monogamous relationship with like a partner, with somebody that I can talk to. I have meaningful relationships with friends. I can hold a job. I own a business. I put my head on the pillow at night and I feel peace. And I haven't found it necessary to use any mind-altering substance in over 4 years. And like, I couldn't make it 4 minutes, you know, like I couldn't. And like taking accountability for my own actions, like who I am today.
And not for a single second do I think that you want to make this show about you, but I want to make this show about you for a second because you help a lot of people. So you have a holistic practice. Yeah, and for our viewers and people watching that like don't know about the holistic realm, like what are some services that you offer?
So I am certified in multiple modalities. I primarily focus in integrated energy therapy, Western shamanism, and Reiki healing. And so with energy healing, it's really about treating our energetic body. Like we are energy beings, you know, and it's scientifically proven that we all have an energy force. It's just a matter of like finding balance and regulating those things. You know, understanding that these pieces of myself that, you know, on a piece of paper made me a schizophrenic are really things that like I can use to help other people.
And I've witnessed you helping people who are really struggling with like similar situations that you've gone through. And you know, I have had many people come to me and be like, hey, where's Holly? She's the only person that can help me with this. Where's Holly? Or, oh God, I really wish Holly was here. Holly would know how to help me through this. I'm like, hey, what am I, chopped liver? Right? But like you're gifted. You know, and I have seen you really help a lot of people with that ability that you have. And, you know, whether someone, I don't want to say you can't see it because I believe that you can, but whether other people can see it or not, like I've literally watched healing happen between you and them. I've had healing between me and you. You know, we've had some pretty powerful experiences together through the gift that you've been given. So your life's pretty rad today.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, like, I'm conduit, right? Like, it's really not me.
Yeah.
Like, and it's tapping into like that divine resource. I always like to point that out. But like, yeah, my life is beautiful today. Like, I feel incredibly blessed to be where I am.
You're getting married?
I am. Yes. Like, in what, 9 days?
Yes.
So we filed our paperwork during COVID. So my name changed, and like we've kind of just kept it under the radar until we could like really have a wedding. And so we're getting married. I'm so excited. I'm also so scared. I don't know why.
You're like a dignified woman that can show up as a wife.
Yeah, right? Like I get
so
to be a
cool.
partner today.
Yeah.
You know, and like I have a partner who's in recovery.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's a blessing, you know, to be able to navigate everything that's in front of us. So
well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was amazing.
It was great having you. Anybody watching, and you would like to reach out to Holly, any resources, anything she said that sparked an interest, you're interested in what holistic healing is, you're interested in how she overcame her crippling addiction, please send us a message on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is I Am a Heroin Addict, and we will make sure to get that message to Holly so she can contact you. As always, thank you for sharing time with us.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.